The wind carried dust across the empty plaza as Sarah Mae Hawkins knelt in the dirt, her trembling hands clutching the last coins she owned. 31 years old, and she had nothing. Not a home, not a family, not even a friend who would open their door. Her husband's sudden death 3 weeks ago had been devastating enough, but what came after shattered her completely. Men in dark suits appeared at her cabin door with papers she'd never seen before. Debts she didn't know existed. Loans her husband had hidden from her. Within 7 days, they took everything. The furniture her grandmother had carved, the quilts her mother had stitched, even the simple gold locket with her parents' picture. All of it sold to pay debts that weren't hers. She'd walked for 3 days with nothing but a small bundle containing 3 worthless kitchen items the creditors hadn't wanted. An old blackened skillet, a cracked clay pot, and a wooden spoon worn smooth by use. The settlement had rejected her at every door. Women looked at her torn dress with suspicion. Men shook their heads before she finished speaking. One elderly woman made the sign of the cross as if Sarah brought bad luck. No one wanted a stranger, especially not a desperate woman with no references. When the sun began setting and her stomach cramped with hunger, Sarah used her last coins at the general store for a small handful of beans. Then she did something that felt like both surrender and defiance. Right there in the empty plaza, she gathered dry twigs and stones, lit a small fire, and began to cook. People stared as they passed, but Sarah didn't care anymore. She filled her cracked pot with water, added the beans, and reached for the dried herbs she'd saved. Thyme, bay leaves, pepper, garlic, salt. As the beans simmered, a smell began spreading through the evening air. It was the smell of home, of care, of food, made with love even in the darkest circumstances. An old man with white hair and a walking stick stopped beside her fire. His weathered face showed kindness Sarah hadn't seen since this nightmare began. "Smells mighty fine, daughter," he said gently. Sarah offered him half of what she'd made. When he tasted it, tears ran down his wrinkled cheeks. "My wife passed 12 years ago," he said, voice breaking. "Nobody's cooked with love like this for me since then. You can taste the care in every bite." They ate together in silence, sharing more than just a meal. When they finished, the old man studied her face. "Tell me your story, child." So Sarah did. She told him everything. The old man listened without interrupting. When she finished, he leaned forward on his walking stick. "You won't find work in this settlement, but I know a place about 15 miles from here. Jed Stone's mountain ranch. Big spread, lots of hands, and they need a cook." Sarah's heart leaped. Would he give me a chance? The old man smiled. "Jed's a hard man. Lost his wife 6 years back in terrible circumstances. Many cooks have come and gone because he's too demanding. But after tasting your food, I'm certain you have a gift. If you show him that, you'll have your chance." He pressed cornbread into her hands. "Follow the main trail to the ridges. At the fork, go left. Be humble but firm. Show your worth through your cooking, not words." The old man watched her prepare to leave. Sometimes the hardest people are the ones who need someone the most. If you can touch his heart through your cooking, you might find not just work, but a true home. Quote, Sarah walked through the night, her feet screaming with every step. Blisters burned inside her worn boots, but she kept moving, fueled by hope. When dawn finally broke, she reached the fork and took the left trail. An hour later, she saw it. The ranch spread across the valley below. Fenced fields where cattle grazed, sturdy barns, and in the center, a large log house. Sarah stopped at the ridgetop, her heart pounding. This place could save her, or it could be just another closed door. She straightened her filthy dress and began descending. As she approached the gates, ranch hands stopped to stare. "Who are you?" shouted a bearded man. "What do you want here?" Sarah gathered her courage. "I'm looking for work." "I heard you need a cook." The men laughed. "The boss ain't gonna want you, he's too particular." But Sarah wouldn't be intimidated. "I'd like to speak with him." Before they could answer, a deep voice cut through the air. "I'm right here." Sarah turned and her breath caught. Jed Stone stood over 6 feet tall with broad shoulders and strong arms. His dark hair showed gray at the temples, and his face carried a hard expression. But his eyes drew her attention most, dark, penetrating eyes carrying the weight of ancient sadness. He looked Sarah up and down with an expression that revealed nothing. "You looking for work?" His voice rumbled like thunder. Sarah met his gaze. "Yes, sir. I heard the ranch needs a cook." Jed crossed his arms. "You got experience?" She nodded. "Yes, sir. I can prepare biscuits, stews, roasts, anything you need." Jed made a sound between interest and skepticism. "Many women have said the same. None lasted long. I have high standards." Sarah's legs trembled, but her voice came out firm. "I understand, sir. I'm not afraid of hard work. I just need a chance to show what I can do." Long silence followed. Finally, Jed spoke. "You got 1 week, 7 days to prove you can cook as well as you say. If the food's good, you stay. If it's mediocre, you leave. Understood?" Relief washed over Sarah. "Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity." If you're feeling Sarah's hope right now, drop a like on this video. Jed called to a worker. "Buck, show her the room and kitchen." Buck led Sarah through the ranch. The room was tiny, but to Sarah it was a palace. Buck showed her the large kitchen. Men eat breakfast at 6, dinner at noon, supper at 6. That's 19 total. Can you handle it? Sarah nodded. "Yes, I can." That night she barely slept, her mind buzzing with plans. Before sunrise, Sarah was already working. She explored the pantry. Good flour, dried meat, fresh eggs, milk, butter, vegetables, basic spices. By first light she had the fire going. Bread dough rising, meat sautéing with onion and garlic, eggs beaten with milk and nutmeg, strong coffee, and golden biscuits from the oven. When the men arrived, they stopped in surprise. "Morning," Sarah said firmly. "Please sit." As she served warm biscuits, creamy eggs, and seasoned meat, the men exchanged skeptical glances. Buck tasted first. His eyes widened. "Good Lord, this is incredible." The others began eating, and wonderful silence fell. Not discomfort, but pure appreciation. "These biscuits are a marvel," said one worker. A young man cleaned his plate. "If the lady cooks like this every day, I'm going to work twice as hard." Sarah's heart nearly burst, but her real test remained. Jed hadn't appeared yet. Buck took him a specially prepared tray. Jed was reviewing papers when Buck entered. "Leave it there," he said automatically. Buck placed the tray and left smiling. Jed continued working until the aroma reached him. He stopped and looked at the tray. Almost against his will, Jed took a biscuit. The explosion of flavor caught him off guard. The biscuit was crispy outside but tender inside. He tried the eggs and was again surprised. Jed finished everything, something he rarely did. That woman had something special. Days passed in a rhythm Sarah hadn't known. Purpose and small victories. Each morning she prepared meals that made the ranch hands work with more spirit. The transformation was visible. Workers who once ate quickly in silence now lingered, talking and laughing. Every day Buck carried a specially prepared tray to Jed's study. Sarah put extra care into it, learning his preferences. Strong flavors, meat well done, coffee without sugar. Jed noticed the food was exceptional. His men worked better, and the ranch atmosphere improved. But Jed maintained his distance. He watched Sarah from afar. He saw how she treated workers with respect, organized efficiently, never wasted anything. He saw it all but said nothing. On the 5th day, things got complicated. Sarah was preparing dinner when she heard loud voices. Young ranch hands were talking about her. "That new cook sure is pretty," one laughed. "Cooks like an angel too," the others laughed, making inappropriate comments about Sarah's body. Sarah gripped her spoon so tight her knuckles turned white. It wasn't fair. She was there to work, honestly. But what could she do? Complaining could cost her her job. She decided to ignore it. But the next day, it got worse. One boy made an even grosser comment during breakfast. "Hey, Sarah May, How about you come have supper at my place? The others burst into laughter. Sarah felt tears of humiliation when a grave, furious voice cut through the air. Enough. Absolute silence. All the men turned to see Jed in the doorway, his face a mask of cold anger. Jed walked toward the table with heavy steps. He stopped in front of the boy. Miss Sarah May is here to work. She's the cook of this ranch and will be treated with absolute respect. He swept his gaze over the table. I don't want to hear one more inappropriate comment, not one joke, not one disrespectful look. The next one who disrespects her can pack his gear and leave. Have I made myself clear? A chorus of, "Yes, sir," filled the room. Before leaving, Jed briefly looked at Sarah. Their eyes met, and she saw something she hadn't expected. Not just anger, but something softer, more protective. Care. That night, preparing Jed's tray, Sarah put even greater care into it. His favorite roasted meat, golden potatoes, sautéed vegetables, and a small dessert. When Buck fetched the tray, he returned with a message. The boss said everything was perfect and he ate the whole dessert, which is rare. Sarah smiled, and for the first time in a long while, it was complete and genuine. Weeks brought peaceful routine. Sarah woke early, prepared delicious meals, and slowly began feeling at home. Workers treated her with genuine respect, bringing small gifts. Fresh herbs, extra vegetables, wildflowers. Jed remained distant, but Sarah noticed small changes. He began appearing in the kitchen more often. Need to check the firewood, he'd say, but his eyes always found hers briefly. One afternoon, Jed appeared when Sarah was cutting vegetables. He stood watching. There was something hypnotic about how she worked. Sarah May, he finally said, making her startle. Wanted to thank you for the work you're doing. The men are more productive. You've made a difference here. Sarah felt her heart speed up. Thank you, sir. Jed hesitated. That table in your room, the crooked leg, is it bothering you? Sarah blinked, surprised. No, sir. I'll fix it anyway. And that window. Before Sarah could respond, he was already leaving. She stood there, smiling. That hard man was showing his care through practical gestures. The next day, Sarah found the table repaired and the window working. In following days, small improvements continued. An extra stool, a new shelf, a small mirror. Jed never mentioned these things, but Sarah knew it was him. Then came that fateful afternoon that would change everything. The sky had been heavy all day, black clouds gathering. Wind blew strong, bringing the smell of storm. Men worked hurriedly. Sarah was preparing supper early when lightning struck. A blinding flash, deafening thunder, and then fire. Fire in the hay barn. Sarah dropped everything and ran outside. Orange flames licked the barn roof. Strong wind fed the fire. Workers ran in panic. But one figure was completely still. Jed Stone stood yards from the burning barn, his face white as paper, his eyes wide with terror. His hands trembled violently, and he seemed incapable of moving. Comment hope if this story is touching your heart. Boss, what do we do? Shouted Buck. But Jed didn't respond. He just stared at the flames with horror. It's the same as that day, he murmured, voice broken. The fire. She was in there. I couldn't save her. Buck understood. The boss's wife had died in a fire 6 years ago. The trauma still tormented him, and facing flames again, he was paralyzed. Workers realized there was no leadership. That's when Sarah acted. Something inside her, a strength she didn't know she possessed, took control. She ran to the yard and shouted, "Listen to me, all of you, right now." Her voice had authority that made the men stop. You three, bring buckets from the well. You two, open the stable and get the horses out. The men began obeying. Buck, take the boss away from the fire now. Buck grabbed Jed, practically dragging him backward. Sarah ran inside, soaked a cloth, and tied it around her face. She ran back and organized the men in a human chain from well to barn, passing buckets. Faster! We can't let the fire reach the stable, she shouted. The flames roared. Heat was intense. But Sarah didn't stop. She took buckets herself, ran from side to side shouting instructions. Her hands burned from heat, her clothes scorched, her eyes stung from smoke. But she continued. The battle lasted almost an hour. Sarah was everywhere at once, the leader they needed. Finally, the last flames were extinguished. The barn was damaged, but the stable was safe, horses secure, and no one seriously injured. Men fell to the ground, exhausted but relieved. Sarah stood a few more seconds before her legs gave way. Her hands trembled from adrenaline, and only then did she feel the pain of minor burns. Her dress was in tatters. Her face was black with soot. But she had done it. She had saved the ranch. Then she saw Jed sitting on the ground, his head in his hands. Buck was beside him. Sarah walked toward them, each step aching. When she approached, Buck stepped away. "Mr. Stone," said Sarah gently. He raised his face, and she saw tears. "It's all right now. The fire's been put out. Everything's safe." Jed looked at her as if seeing her for the first time, this brave woman who had taken command when he froze. "I couldn't move," he said, voice broken with shame. "I saw the flames and went back to that day, the day I lost my Mary Ellen. She was trapped in the barn. I tried to get in, but the flames were too strong. I heard her calling my name, and I couldn't save her." His voice failed. Sarah felt tears burn in her eyes. Without thinking, she knelt beside him and put a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You don't need to explain. I understand. But look around you, Jed." She used his first name naturally. "Everything's safe. The men are all right. The ranch survived. And so will you." Jed slowly raised his face, and she saw his expression completely soften. The hard mask had fallen, revealing the wounded man underneath. "You saved everything," he said, voice barely a whisper. "When I couldn't, you took charge. You were incredible." "I just did what had to be done," Sarah replied. Jed shook his head. "No, you're special, Sarah May. From the first day you arrived, I saw something in you. You have a strength, a determination I've never seen in anyone." They stayed there, looking at each other under the sky, showing the first stars. Something passed between them at that moment, something silent but profound. A connection beyond boss and employee, beyond gratitude. It was the recognition of two wounded souls who had found in each other something they didn't know they were looking for. In the days following the fire, dynamics on the ranch changed. Jed no longer remained the completely closed man he'd been. He began appearing more often in the kitchen to talk. He asked Sarah about her day, where she came from, her dreams and fears. And slowly he began sharing his own stories. How the ranch had been built by his grandfather, how he'd met Mary Ellen, about the love between them and devastation of losing her, about years of loneliness that followed, about how he'd closed himself off because it hurt less than feeling. And Sarah listened, sharing her own stories of loss and new beginnings. One night, after everyone had retired, Jed found Sarah on the back porch looking at stars. He sat beside her, and they stayed there in comfortable silence. Finally, Jed spoke. "Sarah May, when you arrived here and said those words, 'I'm not worth much, sir, but I can cook,' you were so wrong." Sarah looked at him confused. He continued, voice soft. "You're worth so much. You're not just an exceptional cook. You're brave, compassionate, strong. You brought life back to this ranch. You brought life back to me." He hesitated. "And I don't want you to be just the cook here. I'd like you to stay forever." Sarah felt her heart beat so hard she was sure he could hear it. "Jed, he raised a hand gently. "You don't need to answer now. I know it's soon. I know we're both still healing. But I want you to know this ranch is your home now, if you want it to be. And I'd very much like to share this home with you as companions, as people who understand each other's pain and want to build something new together." Tears ran down Sarah's face, but this time they were tears of happiness. She extended her hand, and Jed took it, their fingers intertwining. "I'd like that too," she said softly. I'd like that very much. Quote, if this story moved you, subscribe for more heartwarming Wild West tales and hit that like button.